Would you believe me if I said that the computer that you buy from Best Buy, just say for about $1,000, you could build it for half the price and even probably get better performance than what the computer you buy at Best Buy is? Quoted by one of the greatest computer engineers, Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple. He said, "What a computer is to me is the most remarkable tool that we have ever come up with. It's equivalent to the bicycle of our minds." People may think otherwise, but as a computer major, I think that is exactly true. In high school, well, before freshman year of high school, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist, but I didn't want to go to school for 12 years, so I decided to go into computers, and whenever I toyed around in computer classes in high school, I became intrigued more and more as I messed with them. Moore's Law stated that processing power doubles every 18 to 20 months, which is an incredible fact because computers nowadays are crazy, and in 18 months from now, who knows what a computer is going to be able to do. Today I'll inform you on 7 components that are implemented into a computer, which makes the computer, what each part does, and where to buy the parts. Having the power to fully customize your computer to fit your needs is what makes customizing and building your own computer so fun. The first part to buying a computer is the case. Understand that buying all these parts, there's no chronological order. You just have to make sure they're compatible with each other. The case, there's a wide variety of cases. There's the most common, which is the mid-tower case. There's also other case sizes, which vary in physical size. The most popular is the mid-tower. It's used in most computer distributors, such as Dell, HP, Lenovo. They mostly will use mid-tower cases. The other cases include the full-size, the Micro ATX mid-tower, the Micro ATX mini-tower, and the Mini ITX, which all of those, besides the full-size, are smaller than the mid-tower. So it makes building computers harder in the inside, more tight. Now that you got your case chosen, the CPU is the next thing to pick. Quoted by Newegg, the CPU is the brains of the computer. The CPU stands for the Central Processing Unit. It's placed in the middle of the motherboard on the CPU socket. It's very visible to see, so it won't be that difficult to put in. The two brands are AMD and Intel. I'm not sure about any other CPU companies or manufacturers. Those two are the only two that people mess with in their computers. Depending on the CPU, you will need to buy an aftermarket cooler if it doesn't come with one. Depending on overclockable, which means just boost the performance on the CPU. So besides the CPU, you'll need to get a motherboard. The motherboard is basically a circuit board that holds all the connections inside the case in the computer. You got to make sure that the CPU is compatible with the motherboard as well. Otherwise, the whole build of your computer is basically going to be pointless if you don't have the CPU working. More advanced motherboards have more connections, but do cost more. My motherboard was fairly cheap, so it's more on the basic side. So the next hardware to buy is RAM. Make sure your RAM is compatible, such as the memory slot size and the frequencies. Some frequencies are too fast, some are too slow, depending on the motherboard. Mentioned by a trusted techie, Tom Fisher, additional RAM allows a computer to work with more information at the same time, which usually has a dramatic effect on the system performance. Higher RAM frequencies make the PC run faster, and with more RAM, you'll be able to accomplish more tasks without your computer being laggy and slow. One of the big issues nowadays is a computer is the hard drive space. So our next thing we need to buy is a hard drive. Hard drives are obviously used for storage on the computer, and storage is one of the things that people run out the most on the computer. The two type of hard drives are the basic hard drive spinning disk, or a SSD, which has no spinning disk inside. It's like a little chipset board. Hard drives are cheaper, but they do run a little slower, way slower actually, than SSDs. Well, SSDs are obviously way more faster, but do cost more. According to serverwatch.com, posted on February 24, 2011, SSDs are better because of their life expectancies, performance, physical size, shock resistance, and failure rate. So the next purchase is the CPU, or excuse me, the GPU, which is the video card. And then again, this part is optional. You won't need to do it. You won't need to implement this in your computer, depending on what you do. It's mostly used for gaming, high graphical demand, and also just for dual monitors if your motherboard cannot support it. Higher-end GPUs also require a higher-end CPU, depending on a bottlenecking issue, which means basically a GPU graphics card will try pushing getting too much power, causing your computer to be laggy and slow, which results in very terrible performance loss. So after all the hardware specs are implemented, you will need the only software is the operating system. Three manufacturers are Linux, Mac, and Windows. I prefer Windows, which I prefer for anyone building a computer, mostly Windows 10. The user interface, basically the operating system is the user interface that you use to navigate through the computer. Mac's the only hardware OS. Macs only use hardware created by Mac, so Mac OS only works on Mac hardware, so it's impossible to find. Well, Linux is free, so people use Linux on their builds sometimes. So now you know what goes inside the computer. Let's discuss where do we get these parts. So the first-time builders use PC Part Picker. I highly suggest it. Their brand logo or brand name is to provide the customers with a wide selection of parts that will notify you if they're compatible with one another, as well as the listing prices for you, so you don't have to do it yourself, which is very helpful. I used the Start a System Build guide on their site to build my first computer, so they're really helpful. It's a link of all the parts that they'll help you on parts to which you want to put inside your computer, as well as the reviews, prices, and specs of the part. If a part fails in your computer, you can use PC Part Picker to replace it, to go on there and help you replace it, but I suggest Newegg. If hesitant, go online. If you're hesitant of buying online, you can go to your local brick and mortar store. There are physical relations to the product before buying, which is a plus, as well as they're a little more pricey going to the store, which if you're buying in bulk, I suggest buying online because it's way cheaper. But if you only have one part, just buy from the store. So now you know all this information I've thrown at you. Hopefully you never fell asleep on me, because some people just don't really think computers are cool like me. I hope you learned a few things. What goes in the computer, as well as where to get your parts. Computers can be really advanced or simple depending on how customizable you get with it. So as the other great computer engineer, you might have heard from, Bill Gates, says, you gotta be nice to nerds. Chances are you'll end up working for one day.